Baby, I gagged when they played the scene where Kenya was on the phone and Sonya tried to like butt in and Kenya said, "Hold on, hold on, hold on. Who's speaking?" I felt so bad for Sonya, but at the same time, I'm like, Kenya, work. Like, yes, girl, gather her because she's like, "Who's speaking, girl? Who is this, girl? Didn't I tell you to go home, girl?" G-
Got in my.
Hold on. Who's speaking?
This is Sonya.
So now you don't know my voice?
And Sonya was, I'm gonna stop keying over it, but Kenya ate that. I'm sorry, Sonya, baby girl. What's up, y'all? We are reviewing The Real Housewives of Atlanta, season 15, episode 5. And everybody's gonna gag because I enjoyed this episode and I'm gagging over it. I was really on Twitter trying to see, like, was everybody feeling it? But the episode didn't start, well, the Rolla hashtag, it didn't start trending until, like, an hour or two after the episode came out, which I guess is fine because it's summertime and I guess the girls are outside and not really watching it right now. But I had watched it about an hour after it came out and it still wasn't trending when I started it. By the time I finished it, it was trending, but only at number 6. So it seems like people are like trickling in. I don't know if everybody enjoyed this episode, but I did. At the beginning of the episode, we get this aftermath of this whole blow up with them kicking on, well, MARLO and Sheree kicking on Kenya's door and that whole argument. But then it turns into the MONYETTA and versus the MARLO of it all again. I think I'm enjoying this because it's giving us the dynamics that I've been talking about. Like, we don't want to, it's just not necessarily about the fight itself, but it's about the dynamic. And obviously we can see that, like, MONYETTA and MARLO ain't fooling with each other. And we could definitely see it on Twitter. So it's interesting to watch. I feel like this is what we need. This is what the girls have been asking for. So I enjoyed this part. We get this crux of the argument where basically they're getting into it from upstairs to the elevator to the downstairs. And MONYETTA is really, like, giving this energy and it's making me very excited because I'm like, personality from MONYETTA and she's showing that she ain't for none. So I appreciate that. MARLO was kind of just like mumbling like MARLO does and just kind of throwing stuff out there to say stuff or whatever. But you know, she was engaged in the back and forth. It was cute. I just don't understand why there was such a huge discrepancy as to whether MARLO had slammed his door on this lady's face. It was very clear, but I guess obviously we had the perfect camera view to show that that's exactly what she did. She swung her arm back and deliberately swung that door as hard as she could. I don't know why everybody was confused about it, including MONYETTA. She didn't even seem convinced that the girl had slammed the door on her. But I don't know. I don't understand that. But maybe I'm just picking. So obviously MARLO slams the door in this lady's face, and I like to see how activated MONYETTA got, because she was like, girl, are you crazy? Like, I was enjoying this MONYETTA. I hate to make it seem like it's because she was turned up, but it's just because I feel like I was getting raw emotion from her, and she was reacting in real time to the situation. It was weird, like, I don't know, it just feels like nobody was really getting involved, but everybody was a little flustered. I appreciate that Courtney was kind of like what I call her, like a mediator. Do I feel like she went between? I appreciated the reasonableness that she was giving to MARLO, because even when MARLO was doing some really weird stuff, and it shows like when MONYETTA keeps saying like MARLO was running away from her every time she tried to talk about stuff, because next thing we know, MARLO is outside on the curb, like waiting for her drink, and she's looking into the window of the lobby and like talking at MONYETTA or about MONYETTA, but through the window of the lobby.
Did you see when the man bought MARLO that drank on the curb?
Here's the drink, my lord. Thank you.
I said, it been right at home, ain't she?
It was some weird stuff going on there. I don't really know how she ended up outside. I wish they would have shown her. Did they show her like physically going outside? Because I just wanted to see how that transition went. Like, how did you end up outside of all places to run around away from MONYETTA? Like I said, I like the rationale that Courtney was giving MARLO and trying to calm her down. I think Courtney might be a human being, and I think Courtney might be an okay person almost. But she was the main one in the confessionals talking about like, oh, well, I don't think MARLO intentionally slammed the door. And it's like, and she was right there. It damn near hit her before it hit MONYETTA. But okay, girl. Now I'm thinking like, because last episode, and a lot of people were saying like, why are they in Alabama? Like, we don't need to see them in Alabama. I agree with that, but now I'm thinking like, they went, and it does seem like they got some good content from it. It's not about the argument of it all. It's just about like seeing the dynamics and seeing these different things happen. They're gonna lead us to like, you know, further down like storylines and stuff like that. Like, I appreciated that. So I'm like, okay, great. Because it just felt so realistic. Like, all this craziness is going on between y'all. But the real issue is with Kenya. So at some point, Sonya ends up on the phone with Kenya. And she's just like, girl, like, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. Like, they're in a group and they're on the phone with Kenya. And they're just like, look, has hit the fan. MONYETTA and MARLO are yelling. MARLO's outside having a cocktail. Like, what's going on? Like, why are we here? From what MONYETTA said on Speak On It, she knew obviously what they were there for, but Kenya had made it clear that she wanted it to be a secret for whatever reason. Like, she wanted this to be a surprise. So MONYETTA was keeping the surprise, and I guess from what MONYETTA said, like, the girls were pressing her, like, girl, like, what are we here for? Like, Kenya brought us here. She didn't give us any like context as to why we're here, and now she's up in her room and we're just sitting around after we just got kicked out of that event. So all of that I understand. Like, I understand them being a little frustrated. I think it was heightened because this isn't a group of women that's necessarily super friendly with Kenya. So it's like, girl, MARLO obviously has this kind of like inferiority like thing that goes on with Kenya. So I think Kenya just triggers her. And she's just like, now I'm here and you're not giving us any context as to why we're here. Like, what are we doing? Like, you're not really responding. That doesn't mean go kick on her door. I thought that was corny, but I'm not about to keep rehashing that. Because MONYETTA was keeping the secret. Like, for whatever reason, Kenya wants this to be a big surprise. So, girl, I'm not telling y'all why we're here. I don't really understand why it became so much of an issue. I guess because Kenya does have a history of, like, not being transparent with the girls or, like, letting them know things. Like, Kenya just kind of does whatever she wants to do. But y'all are not her homegirls like that. So, I get both sides. Like, it is frustrating that we're in Alabama and I don't know what the heck is going on. But it's also not frustrating enough for me to go kick down a door. It's just not. So they start having this conversation with Kenya, and they're like, girl, we just want to know what's going on. And Kenya's like, look, if you're not in my core circle, like, I really don't even want you to be here anymore, which I thought was a key. Kenya is good for kicking somebody up out of somewhere. I felt bad because Sonya was talking about how they drove out there, which we saw, and they're already out there. They don't know what's going on. They just got kicked out of this event. They just had this big argument in the hotel lobby. And Kenya's up in her room. So it's like, it is a lot going on. So I felt bad. And they're just like, girl, we just want to know what's going on. Like, we're trying to fix it. And Kenya's like, girl, just go ahead and go home. Just go ahead and go home. Like, Kenya don't even care. She like,
what are we doing? Like, what is...
Don't come back. It's okay.
Don't come back.
All right, well, okay.
All right.
part of me is like, work. The other part of me is like, that's bogus. But then the third part of me is like, but work. I feel her. Like, you know, if you're not really my homegirl like that, you can go. Like, because I don't have time. Y'all were just kicking on my door. So y'all can really go home. Oh, poor Sonya. This is when I was on Sonya's side. I don't know if she was a little tired this episode, but she seemed like she was just being like naturally just like, girl, come on now, like, let's please pull it together. And I appreciated that. If that's who she naturally is, I feel like she should do more of that. And remember, they put so much emphasis on that last episode when Sonya was on the bus, like, girl, I came to support, but I gotta work, so I'm gonna drive down, I'm gonna do my work, and then I'm gonna come on right back, like that sisterhood. And King is like, girl, don't even come back, don't even worry about it. Thank you so much.
Don't come back. It's okay.
And Sonya is like, bet, I'm out.
All right, well, okay. All right.
Another thing that I like, that shows another dynamic where it's like, okay, girl, cool. You tell me to leave, well, I'm leaving. So it is what it is. So bet. So honestly, 10s for both of them. I appreciated that. Great encounter. Sonya went to go pack her things. Kenya continues. The editing was also hilarious. I know I went in on the producers last episode and I stand by what I said. But the editing was hilarious, like with the little top model thing where they were like, we started with 6 and now we only got 3.
They dropping like flies. Yeah, I like that.
Only the strongest style surviving.
This felt right. I do also like the conversation, like the next day. Again, dynamics. I'm going to be saying dynamics like over and over and over again, but I mean it and I feel it in my spirit. When they all were just like, look, and as led by Sheree, the OG, playing the role she should be playing. Like, hey, y'all, let's rally together. Let's talk about this. Like, listen, the trip is a mess. Everybody's a mess. We're obviously going to be going home now. Kenya is sick, which I didn't talk about, but I'll touch on, I guess. Like, that, because the episode was going so well for me, and then it just so randomly turned dramatic. So I was just like, ooh, please don't let me down. Please don't let me down. Like, I was just waiting for them to get to the scene where Kenya was talking about what was wrong with her. Because I'm like, please don't let it be something where it's just like, it's going to seem like she made it up and she didn't want to perform. Because I was like, that would be crazy and that would blow me. And we were doing so well. Like, I feel like everybody was doing so well. I'm like, please, Kenya, don't let me down. And I feel like it was leading up to that. Like, even when she was talking about it, when Sheree came over later, she was like, you know, they did a scan of my chest. They didn't find anything. And I'm like, oh my God. But she said she had the flu. She had a fever. So I hope that excuse worked for everybody. It worked for me. She wanted to do it. She really did. She showed her little costume to Sheree. So, like, I don't have many more opinions about that. It was random for me. I just like how Sheree took the lead after that and was like, look, y'all, King is sick. We're obviously going to go on home. And, you know, I got emotional. Like, that felt like a sisterhood moment. It really did. Like,
It's supposed to be a sisterhood.
I don't know if I was watching a different show than y'all, but I really appreciated it. And I'm like, okay, look at the girls coming together. Marlo is being reasonable. Everybody's getting along. But even when Marlo kind of like, because you know you get that person, they're like, oh my God, like, I've realized that all the small things in life don't matter. Like, let's just make up. And I love how when she was doing that, MONYETTA was still kind of like,
I don't know what happened. I don't just. I'm
maybe
sorry.
not too much. Like, okay, yes, we can join hands and we can pray for Kenya. But, girl, it's not giving all of that for us. Like, girl, please. But I feel like that was a good moment. I thought it was a key how they called Kenya and they're like, can we come see you? And she's like, no, is Sonya gone? Please, no. Like, the next day when they're having their meeting, it was just so much. Like, when Marlo joins, though, it just got so weird for Kenya again. And I feel like Marlo knew what she was doing. I like how she played that. Like, they're just like, oh, we just want to make sure Kenya's doing well. Like, we hope everything's okay. And Marlo's like, yeah, I sent her some flowers and I gave a call and she already checked out. She's gone. Like, imagine that. Imagine sitting there and you just like, you're so concerned about Kenya and she not even in Alabama no more. She made y'all come out to Alabama and y'all are sitting here worried about her well-being and she is at home. Not too much on my girl, though. I like how Marlo slid that in there. I'm going to give her her points. And I like how she played it. She left it right there for us to do whatever we need to do with it. And I appreciated that. I did. I appreciate Sheree playing the role of the OG in the group and gathering the girls and saying, hey, Kenya's sick. She's not here. It's a wrap. It's a chop. We're going home. But let me also start a dialogue and lead us down a different path and say, hey, like, you know, are we going to be cool when we get back to Atlanta? And everybody's like, yeah. And I love how it was pushed a little bit further. Like, MONYETTA, when your girls get back, you know, is everybody going to be cool? Showing more what? Dynamics. I feel like MONYETTA did really well standing on her own, obviously, because that's not her clique. And Kenya was away. And Kandi was gone, and I guess if Drew was on that side of things, she was gone. So I think that MONYETTA did a good job. I can literally picture Marlo standing outside the window looking into that lobby. Like I'm picturing it, and it's so confusing to me. And great, I enjoyed it. Then we get back to Atlanta, and we immediately jump into the Kandi and the Mama Joyce of it all. I know that the girls are like on their like we don't care about that, whatever, woo 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 type of tangent thing. But for me, I feel like for me, I just feel like I haven't gotten into the Kandi Mama Joyce thing in a while. I know we've seen it before, but I don't necessarily feel like it's something that I've been seeing every season. Like, this felt kind of nostalgic for me, unless I haven't been paying attention. Like, when they actually sat down and started having a conversation about something crazy that Mama Joyce had done, that reminded me of something that occurred seasons ago. So for me, I enjoyed it. I'm like, okay, well, this is something that we know is real and that's been happening. So I would like to hear about it. You guys might not want to hear about it, but I want to hear about it. Also, you have to consider time has passed, and Todd and Mama Joyce's relationship obviously goes like this. So it'd be interesting to at least see what side of things Mama Joyce is on at this time, because I really just feel like we haven't heard from her on the show in a long time. Unless I've been sleeping, but I feel like I haven't heard from her. So it's like, girl, what's your tea? How are you feeling about Todd in this season of things? What made it even more interesting is she was still reading. She was still reading. Like, nothing had changed. Like, typically, I on some seasons, I felt like something crazy would happen, and then they would address it on the show, like, Mama Joyce, why did you say that? And she would kind of clean it up a little bit. It would never be great, but she would clean it up a little bit. Kandi asked her on this episode, and she was reading. Like, she's like, well, you like the type of men that you like, and I'm going to have to let that go. Like, you like your man not to take out the garbage. And it's like, Mama Joyce, we're on television. And you're like, what? It was crazy. Like, I don't know what has occurred that's gotten her so spiced up at Todd, but I'm enjoying it. I don't know how y'all don't want to hear this. She literally sat there and said that that man was turning into George Jefferson. And what did that even mean? Kandi's like, what does that even mean? The fact that they were even having a back and forth where Mama Joyce was verbally and blatantly just like going in on Todd, who is Kandi's husband, like, to the point where I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm just like, does Mama Joyce even have a man? And I felt bad for thinking it almost, because I'm like, respect your elders, like, you know what I'm saying, like, but I'm just like, does she even have a man? I blinked, and Kandi's like, but girl, you don't even have a man. After all of that, they had a whole conversation. And Mama Joyce was going in. Your man doesn't take out the garbage. Your man doesn't have a good job. Your man is George Jefferson. And at the very end, Kandi's like,
Do you have plans with your boyfriend?
I don't have a boyfriend.
Okay, so when you get one, no. But when you get one, then don't focus on the future. Focus on the present. Okay. Enjoy what's happening now.
then she proceeded to start getting up. Like, girl, we had the conversation. Thanks for coming. This is the best that Kandi has handled it. Like I said, it happened 100 times, but we've gotten a different dynamic. Kandi handled it. Girl, mama, you don't have a man, so be quiet. Hush. And I don't want to hear about it. And I like that Mama Joyce kept reading. Whatever. Mama Joyce is still going to read, and Kandi's like, well, girl, I don't want to hear it. So I would love to see more of it. Please give us more. Please keep the girls mad. I have to say briefly, I did enjoy seeing Sonya go out shopping with Courtney. They're not really my favorites together or separately, but I did enjoy seeing this. And I like how Sonya was upfront about saying, like, when Kenya told me I can go home, that hurt my feelings. Like, she wasn't rah-rah about it. She didn't try to make it like a kiki moment. Courtney wasn't doing too much. She was just like, that hurt my feelings. Like, that made me feel some type of way. That's the type of TV that I want to watch. Then we get Sheree pulling up to Kenya's house. Sheree looks so good. She looked bomb. Obviously, they having this exchange. Like I mentioned earlier, I was a little nervous about Kenya's story, but it pulled through, and I'm glad we got through it, and she showed us her outfit and blah, 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 whatever. I mean, they talk about the fibroid thing, and I guess that brings Sheree's story around. I'm glad they didn't just kind of, because last episode I wasn't feeling it when they showed it, but I'm glad they brought it back around and like did something with it and had them touch base about it, since they both had that issue. So I thought that was good as well. They're cleaning some things up. Like, last episode was just like not it for me, but I feel like they're cleaning some things up this episode, so I'm going to give them their points for that. The last thing we get is this link up with Sheree, Kenya, and Drew, when they go get the IV drips, which is always something I really want to do. Like, that looks fun. I would love to go do that. This was fun. Like, I think we got to see, it was long enough too. Like, I liked the length of it, that they really played it out and we really saw good conversation. It didn't seem super prompted and super jumpy. And they covered a lot. Like, they talked about being in Alabama. I do also like that they circle back to this whole Sheree and Drew thing. I actually kind of forgot that Sheree and Drew had ended off at odds, like last reunion. I guess because it just wasn't a huge deal, but the thing was just that, like, Drew was getting some reads out on She by Sheree. I didn't think it was that serious, but she was reading Sheree because Sheree is a read. But also, I do remember, like, it was more so a thing of, like, Drew getting into it with Fatum. What's her name? Like, Sheree's friend last season. It wasn't more so Sheree. So I don't know. But they referenced that back, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess the girls are beefing, I guess. And I'm not mad at them introducing this dynamic back in. Like, please give us more. Great. Sheree had an issue with Drew making a comment on the podcast saying, well, when Sheree had brought out all that She by Sheree at the reunion last season, we didn't get to keep that. Like, after the cameras went off, she took it back. And I remember hearing that when Drew did the podcast, so I completely had forgot about it. So it's kind of fun to see Sheree react to it on the show. So I was like, cute. At the end of the day, I wish that there had been some more pushback because Drew kind of gave some bullshit. Like, she was just like, oh, well, I didn't say everything. Like, I said some things. But maybe she genuinely didn't remember. And even past that, like, Sheree kind of gave some bullshit. It wasn't clear to me if Sheree had given it to them or taken it back. Like, it didn't sound like there was a confirmation or a denial. So Drew wasn't pushing back to say, well, girl, you did take the stuff back, and Sheree wasn't necessarily pushing back to be like, girl, you was reading me on the podcast. And so I mean, I guess the girls just wanted to get along, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I'm criticizing them for getting along, but not even necessarily that. It didn't have to be a beef. I just feel like there's some gray area that we're skipping past. So how genuine is this conversation? Because y'all know that it's BS coming from both ends. But okay, whatever. Finally, we get to hear from Drew firsthand what happened with the whole MARLO thing. And I like how Sheree was it felt like Sheree was kind of chiming in for her girl. Like, well, I thought she was standing up over her, like, you know, being Sheree. But that was cute. You know, stand up for your girl. Cool, whatever. But I like how Drew kept her story straight. Like, no, girl, like, she really was trying to get into it with me over, like, not fighting, you know, Kandi. And that was ridiculous. And I like that they had that conversation. I like that we had the moment, too, where Sheree was like, well, let me explain to y'all, like, what MARLO told me. And, you know, basically that he had met the guy at Old Lady Gang and, you know, the nephew used to work there and this, that, and the third. And, you know, Kenya sat back and she got the tea. But after that, she's like, but that don't have nothing to do with Kandi. And it's like, yes, please say that again for the people in the back. Like, that don't have nothing to do with Kandi. But thank you, Sheree, for interpreting and telling us what, you know, what was going on with MARLO. Sheree even said earlier in the episode, like, it's like MARLO's trying to get Kenya's approval. At the end of the day, like, I'm glad that was said on television. And then even MARLO said in her, when she was talking to her life coach on her phone after the altercation with MONYETTA, she even said, like, she admired Kenya. Like, I don't know why they clipped and cut that so much, but you can hear her say, like, I admire her. And then she skipped on to talk about something else. So it's just evident. Like, I'm glad that what we're seeing and perceiving actually playing out on the TV is being spoken about. So that makes me happy as well. Like, it doesn't feel like this weird fourth wall thing or something. Like, it's happening in real time. So that makes the episode more interesting to me, because I feel like we got to get into real dynamics and real issues that these ladies are having, and they're playing out on Twitter. So they're obviously real, like they're beefing about it on Twitter. And it's also stuff that occurred like before the episodes even came out or before they were even filmed. So this is stuff that we've been seeing and now it's playing out. It just felt like real dynamics that we actually know are going on, even if we kind of forgot about them, aka the Drew and Sheree thing. That was kind of random, but still, like, this is real stuff that we know to be going on, and I like to see the interweavings of it and what's going on with it. I think that's what makes a great episode, and I feel like this episode covered a lot, and there were a lot of good moments, a lot of good dialogue, and I liked it. I lived for it. I liked the whole episode. Even when Brooklyn came in and was doing her little karate, like, I feel like we got all the elements that we needed. We didn't see Ralph. We didn't see Martell. That was great. I loved that. cheers to the editing, because the very end of the episode where they kind of did the preview for next week, and Sheree was telling them like, yeah, we talked about when we were in Alabama, we were going to make a pact to still get along when we left Alabama, to get along in Atlanta. And they're both being optimistic. Like, King is like, yeah, sure. And Drew is like, yeah, I would love to do that. And then they're fast forwarding to this fight that's going to happen between Marlo and Kandi. That was chef's kiss. Like, that was great. That's what we want to see. Like, this is what we want to see. I'm excited for next episode. I was excited about this episode. Like, I think they're doing a great job. Whatever they did on this episode, let's continue to do this. And I think it's going to work. If y'all didn't watch Speak on it, go watch it. Unfortunately, Kandi's not on there. It was DJ A1. He did a great job, but I'm just saying, like, it would have been fun to see Kandi and MONYETTA do it together. But it was DJ A1 and MONYETTA. MONYETTA also did an interview with Carlos King. And she was talking more about, like, just who she is. And Carlos was asking her, like, does the cast represent, like, what Atlanta is today, like, Atlanta women today? And she was just, like, naming tons of women that she knew in the city of Atlanta that we may have heard of that can come on the show and saying what they could bring. So I'm just like, that's wild. Like, that made me feel super antsy, because I'm just like, we can really get rid of half of this cast, to be honest with you, and add on those ladies, and I feel like it will make such a difference. Because even in those 2 episodes, I was just falling in love with MONYETTA. I thought she was cool as hell. And she clearly knows people. She clearly has relationships. Like, she clearly has a personality. So, and we saw her turn up in this episode. So, like, I'm just like, we need more of this. And I wanted to do a separate episode about, a separate video about, like, the casting stuff that's going on. Because people have been talking about, like, the ratings are low. And so what if they recast, like, New York? And then, ironically, I had watched the Carlos King interview, and I was hearing MONYETTA talk about other women that can come on the show. So it was jogging my brain. I don't necessarily like to talk about ratings and what the cast might be like during the season, just because I feel like there's a lot of hype around being negative when the episodes come out, because I get it. We don't know what we're going to get, and we know where Atlanta has been, but I just don't like to hear all the negative. Sometimes it feels like it's just very intentionally negative, so I don't necessarily get into that right away, but I'm going to simmer on it. I do think that we could benefit from getting rid of half of this cast and calling some of MONYETTA's friends, but even still, I think that this cast did a good job on this episode. And the editors did a good job on this episode. So I enjoyed it. We will see what happens next week. I hope that it is equally enjoyable. And I will see y'all next time.